Hi, I'm Daniel Fisher, and on today's Synth Clips, we're going to talk about phase shifters. And I'm not going to get really deep into the physics of phase shifting and everything. I'm just going to show you some of the parameters, but more about how you can use it in synthesis along with the standard ways of using phase. So to start, I brought the wonderful Yamaha Reface CP. It does electric pianos and Wurlitzers and clavs and toy piano and the CP electric grand. But more importantly for this is that it has a killer set of effects, including a phaser that I really like. And that's why I went with this today in particular. And so just briefly, what is a phase shifter and how is it different from a chorus or a flanger? A chorus and a flanger are time-based. They take a signal and they move it slightly out of time with a delay, and then they move it back into the other side. They use a triangle LFO. And if you've ever played with a delay and you speed it up or slow it down, you know the pitch goes up and down. And it's doing that on a chorus and a flange where the pitch is going up and down. Then you mix it back with the dry and it sounds like a chorus, like more than one person is playing or singing. But a phase shifter is different. It doesn't change time, it changes phase. In other words, it's changing the wave's phase against the original, and that makes certain frequencies add to each other, and so you get more of certain frequencies, and then the frequencies that are out of phase, they cut because one subtracts from the other, and you get what's called a comb filter. So if this was an EQ, it would look like this, where certain things are boosted, certain things are cut, certain things are boosted, and certain things are cut. And depending on the type of phase that you have and how many stages it has, it can have more of those little comb needles or not, and you can change the depth of it and the speed of it. And then on some other pedals and synths, I'm going to show you even more parameters than that. But the original phase shifter pedals had most of that set for you, and all you had was one knob that did speed. For example, the phase shifter on the first Van Halen album is just a one knob phase shifter. This one has two knobs. It has both depth and speed, and I'll show you those. But first I'm just going to play it for you, and I'll compare it against a chorus so you kind of can hear the difference. So here is the electric piano dry. Okay, now I'm going to kick in a chorus. And when you put chorus on electric piano, it gives you that lounge act from Holiday Inn kind of sound. So here it is. Hey, we'll be here all week. So now I'm going to go to a phase shifter and listen how very different that is. And like I said, the two parameters on this one are depth and speed. If I turn the depth all the way down, there is no phase shifting. And as I turn it up, you're going to start hearing it move back and forth, and the phase shifting gets deeper as I turn up the deep knob. So here's extreme, and I'll speed it up a little bit. Definitely deeper than I would use it for this situation. And you could take the speed up pretty fast. And a long time ago, they used to use phase shifters to simulate a rotary speaker like a Leslie on a Hammond because it had very similar artifacts. So here, I'll speed it up and slow it down. And on some of the pedals and some of the synths, you can use an expression pedal to speed up or slow down that phase shift. Another classic keyboard that very often used phase shifting was a clavinet. So there are lots of phase shifter pedals out there. I only picked two, but I picked these two for a reason. One, I picked the Lunar phaser by Source Audio because it is just a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous phase shifter. And via USB, you can plug it into a Mac or PC or tablet or smartphone and use their editor to change pretty much every parameter you can imagine and some you can't imagine to create every phase shifter that's out there. It's very powerful. So I chose that one. And then I chose this Fender Lost Highway phaser because I had talked about how sometimes phaser can be used to simulate a Leslie spinning speaker. And this one actually has that ability. You can alternate between 2 different rates and 2 different depths. And it also has some other features on here that will start showing you more of the phase shifter features, including 4-stage and 8-stage. Visually, that just means you have more comb tines, and I'll just let you hear the difference. And also, instead of just modulating with a triangle, you can also modulate with a sine wave, and that has a slightly different sound as well. And then there's feedback, which allows you to take the phased output and put it back into itself. It makes it more, the word I use is chewy, and you'll hear what that sounds like. And then finally, there's a sensitivity switch that actually changes the speed based on how loud you're playing. So hard guitar picking or hard keyboard playing will make it spin faster, and then as you play softer, it will slow down again. So to start, I'm going to just turn it on. So I'm back to a regular Rhodes sound. We'll turn it on. And now I'll turn up the feedback. And you can decrease feedback as well and really make the phasing very subtle. And this is one of the ways I really like using a phase shifter. I like using a phase shifter in a way that no one notices that there's a phase shift on. So very subtle and often much slower than this. But this is a really beautiful sound here. You're not sure if it's a chorus or a phase shifter or even a tremolo. It's just some subtle motion that I really like. But I'm going to bring the feedback back up. And there's also a blend knob, so I can go from the dry signal to the phase shift signal. Usually, if you're not right in the middle, you're not hearing as much phase shift, but again, subtlety. Usually I leave that in the middle. And then now I'm going to show you the difference of sine wave modulation versus triangle. So here's triangle. It spends, because it's rounded at the edges, it spends more time at the extreme. So it's lumpier, for lack of a better word. And then here's 8-stage, which is what you've been hearing so far. And if I go to 4-stage, again, it becomes more subtle. And I go back to 8-stage. And like I said before, when using this to simulate a Leslie speaker, this one has a switch that goes between 2 speeds. So you get to set a depth and rate for the slow speed and a depth and rate for the fast speed. And you can alternate between them. And here's this. Maybe ease up on the depth a little bit. And I'll go back to slow. And then there's even a sensitivity knob where if I play quietly, it's slow, and if I play harder, or really hard. And so yet another way of using this, and that's really useful for guitar. We have lots of control over the dynamic range of your sound. And now we'll move on to the Lunar phaser by Source Audio. And I really like this pedal because it checks a lot of boxes. 1, true stereo in, true stereo out. And even when the pedal's off, that's important to me because it means that my previous pedals, which may be stereo, are going to stay stereo. And if the keyboard is stereo, also the stereo-ness goes all the way through, even if the pedal's off or on. So whenever possible, I go with stereo in, stereo out. It's also just a beautiful sound. And like I said, you can use an editor to go and change many parameters of it. I'm just using the presets right now just so you can hear them. And so here it is now with a Fender Rhodes no phase. And with it on. and some more resonance, and really slow it down. And so you can hear that when you're doing arpeggiations or repetitive phrases, it really can help in synthesis to change things up, especially if you're careful to not set the speed exactly to the speed of your clock so that every iteration doesn't have the same phase. You want it so that every time your pattern, your arpeggiation, your sequence repeats, it's somewhere different in the phase each time, and that just really makes everything sound fresh for a much longer period of time. So I'm going to try a different preset. And then this one allows you to change the shape of the waveform continuously, so you can have different patterns as well. I'll speed it up so you can hear it better. I'll ease up on the resonance. So now it's a much more back and forth kind of sound. Ease up on the depth a little bit. And I'll try it with a clav. Okay, now I'm going to use the ASM Hydrasynth because it has a phase shifter with 3 different types, lots of parameters for the phase shifter, and the ability to modulate some parameters of the phase shifter. So this is just a really good keyboard to show how you can use a phase shifter as part of a preset and really think about what you want the phase shifter to do specifically for that sound. So as always, I'm starting with an init, just a sawtooth wave. And I can go over to where the effects are. I have a pre-effects, a post-effects, and that's pre-delay and pre-reverb, or post-delay and reverb. So I can have a total of 4 effects. I'm going to go pre-delay and reverb because one of the nice things about phase shifting is that it sounds really pretty moving through delay or moving through reverb or both. So I've gone to my pre-effects and lots of choices here, but I'm going to go to phaser. And then there are 3 phaser types, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to start with 1. And I have my wet dry set to 0. So again, 0. And now we're going to talk about some new parameters that are available. And so now I'm going to turn the phaser all the way up, 100%. So I'm going to start by moving the feedback knob, which is currently at +10. It can go all the way to +63, but it can go all the way down to -63. And when you're in negatives, basically what that's saying is that you're taking the feedback and inverting it before you're going back in. That makes a lot of differences of which frequencies are cut or boosted by the phase as it's moving through. So here it is at 10 again. I'm going to turn it up, positive. And now I'm going to go to 0. That's the most subtle. And now as I go negative, notice how different it sounds from positive. And positive again. Definitely different frequency ranges being affected. So I'm going to leave it up just a little bit so we can hear it. It's a little more obvious. And I'm going to play with the speed. And it's currently at 0.34 hertz, which is slow, but not as slow as I like it. Now that's slower than I like it, but just to show you what happens when you take something like that and then just let it go over a long period of time. And now that brings up two other parameters, depth and phase. So phase, if you think of that whole sweep, phase sets where the middle of that sweep is, and then depth sets how far away it goes from wherever you set that thing. So I'm going to turn the depth to 0, or at least a low number, and now I'm going to manually sweep that phase amount. And sometimes on pedals it's called manual for that very reason. And if you want to get really good at dialing in a phaser, learn how to use the phase or manual knob. So what you do is you hold something down and then you grab the knob and you manually find what's the highest you like, what's the lowest you like, find the middle of that, and then set your depth to get back out to those 2 points that you like. So listen here. So let's say I like that. It's 100. And let's say I like there 50. So I'm going to go to 75 and then turn my depth up until it goes back out to those two extremes. Now I like how high it's going, but it's not going low enough, so I'm going to lower the phase value until I shift that whole thing a little lower now. And then another parameter is called offset, and basically what it's doing is changing the phase relationship from the left channel and the right channel, which creates great stereo effects. So here we go. And now that's for phaser 1. And I'm going to leave these parameters set the same, and I'm going to just go between phaser 1, phaser 2, and phaser 3. And so now that I have a phase shift that I like, I'm going to control it with something else. Could be an LFO, could be an envelope, could be aftertouch, could be velocity, could be a mod wheel, could be an expression pedal. I'm going to use ribbon for this demonstration. And so to do that, I go to my mod matrix, I go to assign, I have my source lit, I just touch the word ribbon, and I'm there. And then I go to destination, and I want to go to effects. So I touch the effects, and right now it's set to parameter 1, which is speed, which is fine. So if I turn that up and now play something, and maybe I want to go extreme, so I'll go all the way here. And as I mentioned before, having phase shift go into a delay or reverb is a really nice sound. I'll start with reverb. So I'm just going to pick up. That's pretty reasonable reverb. And now again with the speed. get rid of some of that bass. And I'll turn the reverb off and try the same thing with some delay. So I'll go to ping pong delay, pick a nice time, some feedback, a 50-50 wet dry, and now we'll do the same thing. And now, just to be crazy, I'm going to assign ribbon to also go to that effect and change parameter 2, which is feedback. So as I get faster, it's going to get more obvious. Or maybe I want to go the other way. Maybe I want it to have less feedback as I go up because it gets kind of obnoxious. So I'll have more feedback down here. So it didn't get as wild up there in terms of feedback. But just lots of ways that you can start thinking about what do I want to do with controllers. It's great for aftertouch. It's great for anything so that you don't have to reach up and grab a knob to change speed or feedback or anything like that. Anyway, this has just been a quick overview of phase shifting. I hope you start using it more with your stuff. Like Seinfeld said about cooking, sometimes when people say, what is in there? It's like really delicious, but I don't know what it is. He says, it's always cinnamon. Well, a lot of times when people say, there's just something about the motion I really like, it's phase shifting. Anyway, if you have any future ideas for synth clips, just please put them in the comments below. I'm going to have a playlist of all the synth clips in the information section. And if you have any questions about the Hydrasynth or the Fender pedal or the Source Audio pedal or the Yamaha Reface CP, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. My name is Daniel Fisher. Thank you very much for watching.